You can watch Arsenal versus Burnley and Man City versus Crystal Palace on Now TV for just €10. So what's stopping you? Putting up more Christmas decorations? Your house already looks like Santa's grotto. A family party? Your Aunt Mary has seen you 4 times this week already. Don't let anything get in your way. To treat yourself to a Now TV Sky Sports Day Pass and watch the games that matter to you for just €10, search Now TV Football today. Content streamed by internet. Full terms at nowtv.com.
Previously on Coffee with Kenobi.
Well, hello everybody. With Memorial Day weekend past, the Major League Baseball season is in.
I didn't even.
Did you mean to? It's quite all right.
I was so transfixed by your voice, I didn't know what to do.
Hey, soothing. I try to have that effect. It doesn't always work, but tonight must just be the night.
This is Vanessa Marshall, Harrison Dula from Star Wars Rebels, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi.
Live from the Coffee with Kenobi studios, we are on the air with Ian Desher and Brian Sims. Tom will join us for news. Marc Thompson will join us later in the show to talk about the art of recording Star Wars audiobooks. And we will talk about a USA Today article looking at the top 40 Star Wars characters, plus some new Hallmark Star Wars ornaments that I received in the mail quite recently. So before we jump into Star Wars talk, I have sort of a random story, but it does relate to Star Wars, very, very loosely, albeit. Last weekend, they had a teacher celebration, sort of like an honoring teachers, a yearly thing that they do at a local minor league baseball team, the Peoria Chiefs. And I was there for about, 20 minutes or so. And I went up to get some food because it was about that time. And I got a bratwurst. And I got a summer shandy because that's what you have to do, right? It's summertime. And I get my food and my drink. I turn around, and within moments, a couple of things happen. First, I heard this whoosh. I saw what seemed like a conga line of people staring at me with their mouths just agape. I look around, and my face is covered in beer. My chips and nachos are on the ground, and the beer can I was holding was completely smashed. I mean, obliterated. I got hit by a foul ball, and that definitely had never happened to me before. I'm pretty convinced that the shandy saved me from getting a broken hand. Just a really, really surreal experience. And what does it have to do with Star Wars? Well, at the game, there's also an advertisement that there's going to be a Star Wars night at the Peoria Chiefs game. So it's really not related at all.
Well, so I think we can say 2 things about that. First of all, that you're lucky to be alive. So maybe this is the week when you should go out and buy a lottery ticket.
I know.
And thing number 2, I think we can deduce from this is that the ball was not hit by a stormtrooper.
The voices that you're hearing, joining me as our co-host for this show, are New York Times bestselling author of the William Shakespeare Star Wars series, Ian Desher, and Star Wars superfan Brian Sims. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You bet. It's great to have you both on. Ian, of course, has been on a number of times, and we've also had a live interview at Celebration and hope to replicate that sometime in the next few years as celebrations continue. I know you watched from afar on the live stream and enjoyed that.
I did, and hope to get to the next one. I felt I had some serious FOMO going on. Not so much of the, I was not jealous of the lines that people were talking about and waiting in, but was wishing I could be there seeing everybody.
Well, you were definitely missed. It was a good time. I ran into Brian there. Brian and I have now hung out on both coasts, haven't we, Brian?
Both coasts, and hopefully again on the West Coast here in a few more months for Rancho Obi-Wan's Gala in November.
Oh, yes. We are definitely going to talk about the Rancho Obi-Wan Gala here in a minute. Before we get to that, I was looking online and Twitter, as I do often during the day, and, of course, at Animal Kingdom, Avatar, the Avatar Land, Avatar Experience, I'm not even sure what the official name of it is really opened in grand style. Their main attraction is Flight of Passage, and the line for that yesterday was 360 minutes, 6 hours, ladies and gentlemen, to wait in line for a 3 to 6 minute attraction. And this is Avatar. And this is no knock against Avatar, but can you imagine what it's going to be like when Star Wars Land opens?
It's going to be nuts. To put it lightly.
It's going to open up a whole new meaning for the word waiting in line, and I'm afraid that we're going to have to find some creative ways to enjoy our Star Wars land when it gets to Disney World and Disneyland.
That's kind of the classic Star Wars fan, though, right? We were so used to waiting in long lines for, I mean, the figures, sure, but more importantly and more impactfully for the films themselves. And Ryan, I thought you were going to say it's going to be a whole new world. I thought we were going to have an Aladdin thing going on here.
No Aladdin tonight, I promise.
Okay.
Well, don't tempt me. Yeah.
That was baiting, and you didn't take it. I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
You've come a long way. Brian, you and I actually met at Lucasfilm briefly, but we hung out at Rancho last year for the gala. It was wonderful. Anyone who's ever met Steve Sansweet or heard him on a podcast knows what kind of guy he is. He's about as genuine as they come. His love for Star Wars is real. His love for people is real. He's just a wonderful guy, which made, I think, the news from the other day very, very difficult to kind of fathom. He was robbed. He was stolen from. I'm gonna read to you from something that was sent out from Rancho Obi-Wan. I'm just gonna kind of take some sections of it because the purpose of sharing this is to help him. So in February, this is from Steve, not to me directly, but it was something that was sent out. In February, we at Rancho Obi-Wan found out that we had been the victim of a major theft that surreptitiously took place over many months in late 2015 through 2016. There were more than 100 valuable items stolen, the majority of them vintage U.S. and foreign carded action figures, many of them rare and important pieces. Most have been resold or professionally appraised for a total of more than $200,000. The name of the person that is believed to have done this is Carl Edward Cunningham. He's 45. He's a well-known Star Wars collector and R2-D2 builder from Marietta, Georgia. Philip Weiss is the person who brought this news to Steve, and they started doing their detective work. And they're working closely with authorities to try to figure out what happened and how to recover all of this merchandise. So now the gentleman in question, Carl, he surrendered on an arrest warrant at the end of March and was charged with felony grand theft. He's currently free on bail with additional hearings in the case. So the reason it's so heartbreaking, besides the fact that anyone would steal from Steve Sansweet, is that Carl was a good, trusted friend of Steve. He hosted him at his home numerous times. And I can't imagine, I mean, talk about insult to injury. This is a person that was very, very close to Steve. So there is an email address that is tips@ranchoobi1.org. And this is the place where you can go if you have any information. Basically, if you know anything of the items that have been sold, if you bought one of these items, if you've seen them on eBay, anything you can do to help people recover this stuff is good. And there's a list on Facebook, which I'm going to share on the show notes, of the items that are gone. But this was just devastating news.
Yeah, when this email hit us just yesterday, it was part of a media put out by Rancho Obi-Wan, and the whole effort behind this, a lot of things were returned already and there was another theft in Texas that started this whole series of events coming to light. And the list that's out there is what's so important right now. Those are the items that haven't been accounted for yet. And Steve's really reaching out to everybody in the Star Wars community to help him get those items back.
It's terrible. It's a terrible story. It's the first I've heard of it.
So yeah, it was. It is terrible. And I remember when we were at Rancho last year for the gala, I just looked around and all these things, and they're just there for you to look at. And it's like a museum, so you don't even think about touching them or doing anything with the items because they're collectibles. They're a big deal to Star Wars fans, just to historians, people who enjoy culture. And I can't even imagine that someone would do that.
Yeah, it's a place where if you're talking to Steve, instead of something being behind glass and motion detectors and everything else, if you're talking to him or you're talking to one of the docents, they'll stop, they'll pick the item up, they'll show it to you. They'll bring it out as part of the conversation and part of the story behind how the item got to Rancho Obi-Wan. And that's what makes it so special, is it's not behind layers of glass. It's not untouchable. It's the whole atmosphere that he created at Rancho Obi-Wan really makes you feel like you're a part of the experience yourself. Once you become a member of Rancho, once you visit it, you really feel like you're family to them.
I totally agree with that. Here at Coffee with Kenobi, wish Ann and Steve and everybody at Rancho Obi-Wan well. and hope that this gets resolved rather quickly. And I have a feeling that they're going to just champion on because that's the kind of people they are. You just hate to see things like that.
Yeah, I really think this was just this is, I believe, more for them is the final step in this whole process that started months ago. And this is the last call out to, hey, can you help us get these last remaining items? Person accused of it started his court proceedings this week. And they're trying to put an end to all this, get the stuff back and move on from it.
We're going to move on to something. Again, if you have any information, please email at the email address I said earlier, tips@ranchoobi1, and I will put that in the show notes as well. Before we go on to our next conversation, I just want to talk really, really briefly about what's going on with Star Wars and Hallmark. Now, do either of you gentlemen have Star Wars Christmas ornaments from Hallmark?
I do. I don't have a lot. I have some select ones over the years, but not a lot. There are some very serious collectors out there, and at any celebration, you're definitely going to notice that it's a very popular booth to be seen and found all the new items.
I believe we have one or two, but I don't have a lot of them.
They emailed me a few days ago, and they said, we have a new Star Wars series of Christmas ornaments called Storytellers. They mailed these to me, and there are 3 of them. There is Luke's X-Wing, there is Darth Vader's TIE Fighter, and there is a smaller Death Star. Now, last year, by far, one of the most popular collectibles for Christmas time, as well as the entire calendar year, I would say, was the Star Wars Death Star Christmas tree topper, which, what says Christmas like a Death Star, right? And so you put this thing on top, and I was at a Hallmark in Missouri, of all places, and just on a whim, I asked the people working there if they had one. They said, yes, we have one left. Are you interested? So I grabbed it, and it's pretty neat. But this is something that they have taken and they've evolved. Basically what it is, they're Christmas ornaments, but they're extremely detailed. They're incredibly detailed. The texture on these things, they're like models. They really are. And the Death Star is a nice looking version of the Death Star. It's a little more gray than black, and it's small, but it's probably about the size of a softball, maybe a little smaller than that. So the thing with these, though, you have a separate, it's called I'm trying to read the box here. It's a keepsake power cord. And what it is, it's a small green cord, very similar to what you see for Christmas lights. And on it is about 8 or 9 different little plugs. So on each of these Storyteller ornaments, you plug in to the main plug set, of course. And depending on how you plug them in, it depends on what you're going to see and hear and experience. So first thing I did is I plug in the X-Wing. Basically, the majority of the dialogue and sound from the trench run, from Luke's perspective and the X-Wing perspective, is here. And it's beautiful. At first, the cockpit is green, and then it's red for Christmas. And again, the sound effects do what they do from the film. And Darth Vader's is the same way, as is the Death Star, although the Death Star starts with Tarkin and Princess Leia talking before they blow up Alderaan. So again, depending on how you plug this stuff in, depends on what you're going to see and hear. And I did them separately, and at the end I plugged in all 3 together, and I just sat back for like 5 minutes and experienced it, because it was an experience. It's amazing. Like, it is, I think it's going to be something people are really going to love, and I think we're going to do a Facebook Live showing a little bit more in detail, because I can talk about it, and that can pique your interest. But when you see them and see what they do, it's great. I've always had a very soft spot in my heart for Star Wars and Christmas. I think maybe just from getting fun Star Wars toys when I was a kid, or just the sensations. And of course, with The Force Awakens and Rogue One coming out at Christmas time, as well as The Last Jedi, I just think that's kind of cemented that there's something very, very neat for me as a fan, as a family man, of having Star Wars and Christmas together.
Well, I'm looking forward to your Facebook, because they say there's 127 possible different stories when you combine these ornaments. So I'm hoping Coffee with Kenobi is going to be the first one to put all 127 of them out there for us.
Amazing stuff. We're going to go ahead and we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk with Marc Thompson. This is Coffee with Kenobi.
You're listening to Coffee with Kenobi. Coffee with Kenobi.
Coffee with Kenobi is sponsored by Penguin Random House Audio. Looking to catch up on the latest Star Wars books? Try listening to them on audio. Featuring sound effects and music directly from the movies, Star Wars audiobooks are the definitive listening experience. From brand new audiobooks such as Thrawn and Empire's End Aftermath to our blockbuster movie tie-in editions, they'll have plenty to keep you entertained. Visit penguinrandomhouseaudio.com/Star Wars for sample clips and to start listening now. Coffee with Kenobi is also sponsored by the Star Wars digital card trader collecting app from Topps. If you love Star Wars and love the excitement of chasing your favorite Star Wars collectibles, the Star Wars digital card trader collecting app from Topps is for you. Download the free app from iTunes or Google Play and collect your favorite images from the classic 1977 Star Wars cards to the Clone Wars, Star Wars Rebels, The Force Awakens, Rogue One, and much more. Collect and trade with friends new and old through the Star Wars digital card trader collecting app from Topps. These are the cards you're looking for. Before we move on, I also want to say that a big reason for the success of our show is our CWK Patreon contributors, including Jason Hall, Dennis Keithley, Angela Souse, Aaron Harris, David Strutt, Mediocre Jedi, BJ Smith, Nick Deco, Adam Leonard, Mark Suter, Mike Audette, Eric Struthers, Jared Cantor, Swara Sala. It's a monthly donation that goes towards show expenses, equipment, and travel. And there are a lot of new incentives that we have looked at and tweaked. We just did a new thing now where you can do anything for $1 a month. We have set this thing up. When you sign up, if you contribute $5 or more, you get a follow from Coffee with Kenobi on Twitter, and you'll also get an announcement at the beginning of the show like we just did. $10 or more are the same things from before, and you also get a link to a Google Hangout where we're just going to have a video chat and talk about whatever is on your minds. You can ask me questions. We can talk about certain Star Wars topics. Really, the choice is completely up to wherever the conversation goes and what you have in mind. And that's again for $10 or more. And it looks like next Tuesday we're going to do that. Next Tuesday is the 13th of June. So that's when we're going to do the first one. And then depending on how much you want to contribute from that point, you can co-host the show with me for 1 month. But there are a number of incentives besides that, including coffee mugs and t-shirts. And again, it really does a lot to help out the show as far as the production, maintaining the website, equipment, all that good stuff. So thank you so much for considering it. And if you have any more questions about CWK and Patreon, please check the show notes for more information. Marc Thompson joins us. I want to start by looking at your overall history with the franchise, and really for so many fans, you, my friend, are a primary means of how they enjoy their Star Wars fandom. What does that mean to you, both as a fan and as a professional?
Wow, thanks for having me on.
Sure.
It's a huge honor. I mean, I'm a big Star Wars fan. Way before I started recording the audiobooks, just going back to as a little kid, and so this is like dream come true level stuff for me to be able to kind of have a small presence in the Star Wars universe. And the feedback on social media has been really encouraging and inspiring, just people letting me know that they enjoy the performances and, you know, that they, like you said, kind of listen to the books, and it means the world to me. It's like the thing that I'm probably most proud of on my resume, you know, is that I get to say that I did something associated with Star Wars. It's like a huge deal for me.
It's pretty fantastic, and I saw on Twitter your headline is a really cool picture of you as Obi-Wan Kenobi in front of the Millennium Falcon, I believe.
Oh yeah. I was at a celebration or something. So
yeah. It looked like that was the set they had on the Star Wars show. A lot of fun.
Yeah, it was really cool.
So when you're reading and preparing for a job that you have on Star Wars, do you find yourself reading the book differently than you would if you're just reading for pleasure?
Oh well, yeah. I mean, there's two levels of that, or two reasons, I guess. I mean, one, when you're reading a Star Wars book, my mind automatically starts putting John Williams music in it and imagining blasters going off and, you know, lightsabers, and, you know, so I think it's much more immersive in that level because I've just absorbed so much of that galaxy from watching the films over and over and over again that it has an extra level of in-depth, you know, and imagination that goes on when you're reading it. And then just also as a narrator, when I'm preparing to do it as an audiobook, I have to kind of approach it very technically and pay extra attention to the characters and kind of who they are in the story. And I'm kind of thinking of it as a director, if you will, in terms of like, okay, this character speaks, so who do I want to cast in that role? Like, what should they sound like? And how am I going to make that character different from this character? Because they have similar backgrounds, so how do I make them distinct? And, there's a lot of different kind of technical things I'm looking at when I'm reading these books to kind of make sure that the story gets told in the right way. And, how much emphasis should I put on this moment? Because this is going to be important later on, so I need to remember that when I'm reading it, and being recorded, to not give away any surprises, but maybe make sure that I'm giving the proper weight to it because it has a deeper meaning a few chapters from now. So,
absolutely. That makes perfect sense. And is there ever a time when you're recording one of these, obviously there's a director or a producer, but is there ever a time when the author gave you personal feedback to know when to emphasize certain parts?
No, and that's mainly a logistical reason, because it's just the timeline on these is always we're kind of under crunch time, because a lot of times they'll let me know I'm going to record it, and when I initially read through it, it's not even the final pass of the manuscript yet sometimes, because they're trying to kind of release the audio at the same time as the hardcover version of the book. So there's not a lot of time to consult with the author and then consult with the director. A lot of times we have to kind of get this done in 2 or 3 weeks. So it would just slow the process down. It's not because we don't want their input, but it's just we just have to move at a pace where it would slow things down to kind of go back and forth. So all those decisions are kind of left to the director and the executive producer, which is Kevin Thompson and Aaron Blank, and they've got a great instinct for these things. Like, they've done so many of them that there's certain things that might work better in the audio production that might not work well in another format. So they've got a real ear for what's going to work in an audio book because they've done so many. And a lot of times, any input that we would get from the author is kind of already put in the text. Right. Because they put so much thought into, the dialogue and even in the description of the character and how the prose a lot of times will outline how the dialogue is being said in terms of how, descriptions of it, or in terms of how a character reacts to the tone of voice. And, so there's a lot of that input's just in the book already. So it's not super necessary to get a lot of extra feedback as well.
Yeah, it makes sense. And as you mentioned, when you're dealing with professionals and the amazing authors that you have to work with and work for, I guess, in a way, the text and the prose, as you so beautifully put it, that tells the story right there, and it's your job to just breathe life into it, which you do so well. And you've done so many examples of great work in Star Wars books as well as in other productions. But most recently you worked on Thrawn. How did the process of recording Thrawn compare with previous experiences in Star Wars novels?
Well, it was interesting because I had recorded the character of Thrawn a few years earlier, because I got to do the 25th anniversary of the Thrawn trilogy of Heir to the Empire. Yeah. So the way I interpreted the character for those books needed to, in the new book, it needed to change, because when he was added to Star Wars Rebels, Lars does this amazing interpretation of Thrawn on Rebels that was different than what I had done in the audiobook. So we wanted to keep the continuity of how he's appearing in Rebels happen in the book. So I kind of had to, mimic or try to embody what Lars was doing. And his accent is so unique and so different, and just I was trying to listen to interviews of him on YouTube and listen to clips and So I did a lot of kind of rewatching some of those Rebels episodes and just on loop, Harasindula, the Kalakori, like listening to different phrases over and over. And I really, that was probably the biggest challenge, was trying to kind of figure out his voice. And I kind of latched on to this idea that like there's this really great organ music that plays on any time that he's appearing in Rebels, and he has this kind of like very subdued, very calm, cool, and collected tone of voice that reminded me almost of like Dracula, or like kind of this like like kind of horror movie character, the way that Lars was doing it. And so I kind of latched on to that to kind of help keep me grounded in what he was about, because he's always thinking. He's like a Sherlock Holmes. He's always kind of plotting out things, and the exoticness of like the organ music and the slight accent, I think gave me some things to hold on to as we were going through the book. So it was really interesting to kind of get to play him again, but in a different way and in a new way. And I really enjoyed the book. I thought Timothy Zahn did an amazing job, and it's such a cool idea to kind of see how he comes to power and kind of like see kind of his backstory. It was really interesting.
Yeah, I think that Zahn's going to go places. He's pretty good.
Yeah, he has a future.
I absolutely love that you compared that to Dracula. I currently, one of the books I teach in our British literature course is Dracula by Bram Stoker. And I hadn't really thought about comparisons of Thrawn to Dracula, but you're really onto something special there. And you could actually say that Thrawn was somewhat vampiric in a way that he tries to kind of suck the life out of Joy and out of the rebellion. So that's fantastic.
Oh, cool.
So thanks. Talking about Thrawn, talking about Timothy Zahn, or really any author that you've had the good fortune to read one of their books, is there really a discernible difference in different authors' writing styles as far as how that impacts your performance?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you learn very quickly kind of what the author's voice is, and everybody's got their own unique style. And I guess in the same way that like an actor would access parts of themselves in order to, flesh out a character. I've learned over the years that, you start to see how authors have accessed parts of themselves, and that kind of fleshes out the characters, or even the writing style, even the structure of the book, and just beyond the characters, just how, some of the philosophies that get brought up, or the worldviews that get brought up, and the big questions that some of these stories ask. I kind of see that as part of the author's voice. And it is interesting, because when I've gotten to meet a few of them, and you totally see it in their personal interactions too. It's like, oh yeah, it makes sense that you're, this person is a little bit more formal and a little bit more, intellectual, if you will. And then this person is kind of more snappy and punchy and kind of has this, wit, and, and you totally, it totally links up with what you imagine in your head when you're reading.
Right.
So.
And it's not unreasonable to say that you're very much a student of human culture and human interaction. I love that you can see mirrors between the author and the work, and we emphasize that so much in classes and just as well as in talking with people, that there really is an immediate correlation between the two.
Yeah.
It's
pretty
great.
fascinating.
Yeah. So for you, I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit. What makes a good Star Wars story?
Ooh. So for me personally, like my opinion?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Well, so what, I mean, everybody loves Star Wars for different reasons, and there's so much great, rich material out there. So for me personally, what draws me to Star Wars is the idea of the Force, and the idea that there is a greater power that you can't necessarily see or touch, but do you believe in it? Do you trust in it? And do you are you open to it? And what do people, the idea of the balance of right and wrong, of light and dark, and do you choose to follow the dark side, or do you choose to follow the light? And do you make decisions based on what's quick and easy and what benefits you, or are you willing to look at the greater good and make sacrifices and persevere through challenges? And like that type of stuff. I guess the spirituality of Star Wars is what I think makes it really unique and really different, and that's what I love. So any story that delves into kind of those topics and the idea of the light and the dark and kind of and the Force, I think is so fascinating, and that's the stuff I really love.
Well said. There's something really compelling about what George Lucas initially created with the Force, and how future generations have taken the aspects of the Force and added to it and created things, whether it's in Rebels or Clone Wars or in novels. And I find that to be a really important part of good storytelling for Star Wars. And I think there's something to the idea that there's more than just adventure here. This is there are some nice things. One of the things I always loved about Mark Twain is he said that the thing that he loves about fiction is that it's obliged to tell the truth. So you can really make commentary on humanity and culture through fiction.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
So is there anything else that you would like to plug or that you're able to talk about?
Currently, I'm not currently working on anything Star Wars related. I hope to be soon, and I know there's some great books that have been announced coming out later this year. So I'm hoping that I get to work on them, but I never really find out until a few weeks before going into the studio. So
kind of have your own bat phone, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So,
well, anything else non-Star Wars related that you're working on?
Well, I'm currently on a cartoon that's on Disney Junior. It's called Peking Duckling.
Yes.
And I play Peking Duck, and he's kind of a goofy, lovable guy that always gets things wrong, and his friends have to teach him the right thing to do or kind of how to solve the problem. So I'm on that, and I think that's doing well. And if people want to check that out, it'd be really cool.
My 3-year-old Mason absolutely loves that show.
Oh, great. Okay, cool. Yeah, my kids I have a 12-year-old and a 14-year-old, and so I'm not cool for them with that show. So they've aged out of that one, so I don't have credit anymore. So I'm seeking little ones to find approval. So,
well, you've definitely got one in our household.
That's good to hear.
So be sure.
And then I'm on Pokemon, and I just did I've done stuff on Yu-Gi-Oh! In the past, and I just did a villain on Yu-Gi-Oh! This week. So different animation things I'm on pretty regularly.
You got some pretty cool G.I. Joe experience in your resume too.
Yes, yeah, that was pretty cool. G.I. Joe Sigma 6. Didn't last long, but I was a big G.I. Joe fan growing up, so that was a huge honor to do that one as well.
Well, I still will never forget rushing home from school every day to watch the latest G.I. Joe cartoon.
Oh, yeah.
It was a great stuff.
I had the aircraft carrier and a bunch of action figures. Yeah, it's pretty cool. My dad mounted it on a door, and we would pull the door down anytime we wanted to play. So it's pretty cool.
That's phenomenal. Well, everybody, be sure to check out Marc on Twitter, and it's at Captain EHUD, correct?
That's correct.
Well, thanks for being on, Marc. We will come back with news. This is Coffee with Kenobi.
This is Coffee with Kenobi. Coffee with Kenobi.
Looking to catch up on the latest Star Wars books? Try listening to them on audio. Featuring sound effects, top-notch narrators, and music directly from the movies, Star Wars audiobooks are the definitive listening experience. From Han Solo to C-3PO to Admiral Akbar, you'll recognize all of your favorite characters. Listen to movie tie-ins like Rogue One and The Force Awakens, to book titles such as Thrawn and Empire's End Aftermath, to classic audiobooks like William Shakespeare's Star Wars. With Star Wars audiobooks, you'll have plenty of Star Wars listening to keep you entertained. Visit penguinrandomhouseaudio.com/Star Wars for sample clips and to start listening now. What's new in the Star Wars digital card trader collecting app from Topps, you ask? Well, for me, in my collection, and my fan name is DanZCWK if you want to do some trading with me on the Star Wars digital card trader collecting app, I'm going after the Galactic Icons Marathon set. The first one showed Luke Skywalker dueling with Darth Vader on what appears to be Bespin, at least according to Luke's outfit. Great stuff. One of the best things about the Star Wars digital card trader collecting app is that it features incredible images from many aspects of the saga, including the original trilogy, the prequels, the Clone Wars, Rebels, The Force Awakens, and Rogue One. It's the quality you have come to expect from Topps. It's also easy to get into and really fun too. Your favorite Star Wars characters, scenes, and moments are in every pack. After you download the app, open it each day and you'll get free credits to spend on card packs from the Cantina. If you can't get what you're looking for, there's a place to trade with your friends as you complete your Star Wars collection. Plus, it's all free. And if you're an experienced collector and you like that challenge, there are exclusive cards, special inserts, and even autograph opportunities. Don't worry about missing the card sets you want either, as you can sign up for notifications right on the app. The Star Wars digital card trader collecting app from Topps can be downloaded for free from iTunes or Google Play. Be sure to download the app and start your collection today. The Star Wars digital card trader collecting app from Topps is available now, and remember, these are the cards you're looking for. Tom Gross joins us with news, and Tom is very, very soon going to be sailing the 7 seas and maybe getting a little bit of Star Wars in there as well.
Yeah, you bet. I am looking forward to a little getaway with the family on the Disney cruise, the ship, the Fantasy. Can't wait. Can't wait.
For our honeymoon, we went on a Disney cruise, and it's amazing. You were mentioning before we started the segment that there's a pretty cool Star Wars experience on the boat.
That is correct. The ship was in dry dock this winter, I guess, and they updated some areas, and notably, they updated the kids' Oceaneers Club to have a Star Wars experience. And as I'm sitting here right now, I don't recall exactly what the Star Wars experience is called, but it is basically, my understanding is it's the Rebel base. And kids, while they're in the club, and hey, I'll in a couple of weeks, I'll be able to tell you exactly all of it. But the kids will be able to strategize and come up with plans on how to defeat the First Order or the Empire or whatever. So I can't wait to get in there. And I'm normally banned as an adult from being in there, but when you join and you come onto the ship, you get to tour those areas as a parent. And so you better believe I'm going to have the camera at hand, at the ready, and I'll have some of my Coffee with Kenobi cards too, Dan. And maybe I'll get an interview with somebody.
Well, there you go. I love it. That's cool. Yeah, the way that the boat works is that when you get on before they leave the dock, you're allowed to go anywhere on the ship just to kind of see everything and just kind of get a feel for stuff. And the childcare there is amazing, and it better be, because that could be obviously a very dicey prospect if you don't feel like you're safe. So what they do is there are different age groups that have different clubs in different areas and different play areas, and they give you a wristband that matches with your child. And when you show up, you absolutely have to have your wristband to pick up your child. So they're very, very strict on security. And that's the reason why there are certain areas that you're not going to be able to see, except for when you do that as soon as you get on the boat. So definitely be sure to do that and get some pics for us, because that'll be fun. So what do you have for us this week?
Well, can you believe that the San Diego Comic Convention is already around the corner? Funko Pop announced on their blog Tuesday their first lineup for the Comic-Con exclusive Star Wars Pops. The lineup includes Bodhi Rook and Combat Assault Tank Trooper, both from Rogue One, and Supreme Leader Snoke from The Force Awakens, and a 2-pack R2-D2 and the holographic Princess Leia from A New Hope. A full 360 view of each figurine can be seen in a 1.5-minute video on the Funko blog. And I know that there's some cool features that I like about this lineup, but I'm wondering if any of you have seen this and what your thoughts are on the original lineup that they're giving us.
I've tried to steer away from Funko for a little bit, simply because I do go to Comic-Con every year, and I try to spend as little time in those kind of lines as possible. Most of my Funko collecting now goes to the kids in the family.
What about you, Ian? Have you ventured into the Funko arena?
I have not yet Funkoized my life. I have been amazed, though, walking around different cons at the phenomenon and how popular it's become. It's amazing.
I think phenomenon is a very good word to describe it, and I like that you made it into a verb as well. But they have these are great. I tried to avoid them for a very long time, and then there was an Obi-Wan Kenobi one, and I've become such a sucker for the Sir Alec Guinness Obi-Wan Kenobi, as I mentioned on previous shows, and so I got it. And that one led to 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's almost like Gremlins. You know, you just throw them in water and they just appear everywhere. That's pretty much how Funko Pop is. And they're very easy to store and display because they're very lightweight and they're small and they're very fun. But I gotta say, at Celebration Orlando, the only way to get the exclusives, the one I wanted was the Grand Admiral Thrawn from Rebels. And you had to get picked in advance for the lottery. And it wasn't as if, I mean, it really was random. I know members of the story group who couldn't even get into the Funko line to get stuff. And they helped create these characters. So I wasn't able to get in, and if I wanted to wait to buy one, I had to wait in line for, somewhere between 3 and 6 hours, and even then there was no guarantee. So I must admit I'm a little relieved that there's none here that are totally extremely tempting to me, because even if I could get it, I don't know if I want to wait in the lines. Although I will say the Combat Assault Tank Trooper is pretty cool, and I'll put a link to it in the Skype chat for everybody to see if you haven't got a chance to see him yet.
Yeah, I'm sitting here looking at Jyn Erso sits right underneath my screen, as a matter of fact. But I when I was looking at these, I kept thinking, why is Snoke and Leia like whitewashed and completely white? Well, first of all, Snoke is a glow in the dark Funko, which is kind of cool. But then it dawned on me that, you know, I'm a Johnny come lately a lot of times on things like this. But I was looking, going, wait a minute, Snoke is always in a holographic view, and the Leia with R2, oh, that's the Leia that R2 projects, and so naturally she has no color to her because she's which once I made that realization, I was like, that is really cool.
that was some lightning fast detective work. That's good.
Thank you. It takes, you know, like I said, I'm Johnny come lately on those things. But according to the Funko blog, there will be another reveal soon, and full details will come out the week of the San Diego Comic-Con. The convention begins July 20th, and be sure to stay tuned here for those news briefs. Has anyone had an opportunity to take a peek at those?
I've seen the releases, and the little hologram projectors are looking very unique.
If memory stands, I'm pretty sure this is the only collectible of Snoke that's ever been released, so for that alone, it could be worth something. It's also, it's a super size pop, so it's a little bit larger. So I have a feeling that'll probably be the most popular one. That's just a guess, but I don't know. Ian, is there any that look good to you?
Yeah, I'm kind of digging the Leia and R2 one. That's really fun.
Well, in a follow-up story from a few weeks ago, Electronic Arts has announced that there will be a live stream playthrough of Battlefront 2, June 10th at 12:30 p.m. Pacific time. EA has collected an all-star cast of some of the best gamers, YouTube stars, Twitch streamers to create 2 teams of 20 for an all-out separatist assault on Theed on the planet of Naboo. According to the EA announcement, Darth Maul and other cross-era heroes enter the battlefield as clone troopers mount a desperate defense against the separatist battle droids. Can the team of Republic forces stop the relentless crawl of the massive multi-troop transport as it lumbers toward the palace doors? Gentlemen, if you were called to duty in Star Wars Battlefront, which side would you join?
Well, the bad guys always have cooler costumes, so I think I'm going to go there.
Yeah, I'm gonna be against you there. Sorry, Brian. I'm gonna be on the good guys. I'm gonna be a rebel.
Yeah, I would be a rebel. I always think the Empire has cooler costumes, but I always pick the Rebels. Even for the Star Wars Topps digital app, when you can pick what side you're on, I just pick the Rebels just because I think they're engaging. And it looks pretty cool because this one is this is the one they announced on the Star Wars show today, correct? Where they are going to be at the Theed Palace on Naboo.
That is correct. And I was watching the Star Wars show with my daughter, as I do every week, and she looked at me and she says, "Dad, there's no way that can be a game. It's real." It is amazing how awesome it looks. And Brian, I just want to say I'll go with you on the side of the separatists, but I think you might get a little tired of me saying Roger, 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 Roger.
Never.
Oh, well, in news from the small screen, Lego Star Wars: The Freemaker Adventures. Right, yeah. Freemaker Adventures will kick off Season 2 June 17th on Disney XD. Set between the events of The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, fans follow the Freemaker family who scavenge the stars to make a living of salvage and repair. Xander, Cordy, and Rowan find themselves fighting with the rebellion this season. And the season trailer even shows an appearance with Rebel superstar pilot Harrison Dula. This action comedy series has earned 4 Daytime Emmy nominations. Dan, last week you visited with Bill Maas and Bob Roth, executive producers of Lego Star Wars: The Freemaker's Adventure. As we near the opening of Season 2, does anything stand out with you from your conversation?
Well, the first season I'm familiar with, but it's just something that I didn't give the same kind of attention that I did Rebels, just because it was different. It was a different kind of level. It wasn't geared towards me as an audience. But now that my son likes it, and I got to talk to Bill Motz and Bob Roth, who are amazing guys, really personal, really funny. The passion just exudes from creatives who dive into Star Wars, and Ian is definitely no exception to that. So I found it really fun, and I like that they're going to incorporate a lot more of the Star Wars universe, since these characters are going to be a part of the rebellion. So it's really entertaining, and I'm looking forward to tuning in. And when they actually announced that it's going to premiere next week, I was excited.
Yeah, the humor that we're getting from the Freemakers, just carrying over from what we got from Droid Tales, it's really, it can be sit down with your kids type of enjoyment, or it could really be adult humor if you really look at it. It's some great stuff.
I do like the Lego aspect of it. I just think it's so, Legos are so timeless, and Star Wars has become, a part of it. And I love the kind of play that they did. And I loved your conversation last week with those guys, Dan. But I love, how they took this idea of scavengers, and I think of Legos as, when I dig through my big box of Legos from when I was a kid, it's like scavenging all those pieces and creating new things, which is exactly what they did with those characters. I love that tie-in, and I love the way that they've done that, and the humor in there is just, it's fun. And Brian, you're right. It's sit down with your kids and have a laugh, or sit down and just kind of have an adult fun too as well.
Which seems to me to be like what, every Lego property is doing these days. It's everything that I see from them is just so great.
Yeah, I agree.
Great for the kids, great for us. Yeah.
Yeah, and they are timeless, and really the Star Wars brand saved the Lego company. They were really hurting, and then they started doing some Star Wars Legos in the mid '90s, and here we are. Things have never been stronger for Lego. Now, the question I always think about, not always, that's kind of hyperbolic, but when I think about getting Legos, because the other day, my son and I were at Barnes & Noble, and they have a much more of a toy collection than I would have expected. But they had the Phantom, the ship from the Ghost, and it came with a minifig of Thrawn and Kanan with his mask when he's blind, and then it comes with Chopper, I believe. And I was looking at it, and I thought, that thing is really, really cool. If I put that together, aren't there people who glue these things as they put them together and they just never take them apart again? Is that something that anybody would consider doing?
This is my wife's, I won't say it's a complaint. It's more as an observation, about the Lego Star Wars sets we have, right? Is that we get them home and we put them together, and I say we because it's me just as much as it's my 2 sons, right? And the 3 of us are saying that they're putting them together, and then they're done, and the boys might play with them a little bit, but essentially we don't want to touch them. They're so beautiful, and Lego does such an amazing job, recreating the ships, recreating the characters, right? That it almost feels more like putting a model together in some ways, right, than it does something that you'd want to smash back apart and use for the individual Legos. I just can't. We bought the Millennium Falcon when we were in Legoland a few years ago, and
wow.
we after we put that thing together, it's just we're never going to take that apart. I might as well have glued it. So.
No, I totally get that. And how old are your kids again?
11 and 13 now.
11, 13. So that's perfect. I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, as Mason gets older, I'm definitely looking forward to tackling more sophisticated sets. And the Falcon must have been. How long did it take to put the Falcon together?
It took a few days. Us working together, sort of in the evenings after work and things like that.
Right.
Yeah, it was great fun. Yeah.
That's very cool.
I love your assessment of that. It's like putting a model together. I've never really thought of that way, and I think that's the way my daughters see. I have a 6 and 10-year-old, and when they build their Lego sets, now I've stayed away from the Star Wars Lego sets only because I could go crazy on them. I mean, I look at them and I drool over them, and I think I got to step away. But when my daughters put theirs together, I'm like, you guys play with them. Oh no, I might break them. I might do this. I'm like, no, that's the joy of Legos. You got to take it apart and make something new. And they just look at me like I got 2 heads or something. But I've never thought of Legos as models, and that's really interesting.
I mean, I think part of it also, and growing up, loved playing with Legos and loved making my own things. But when push comes to shove, none of the things I made were ever going to look as good as the pre-made Lego sets.
Right.
And so that is why, I mean, there's just sort of at this different level, right? Which is why I guess I sort of associate them more with models. And sure enough, I mean, the biggest Lego Star Wars set we have are now like sitting as display pieces than things to play with.
No, yeah, and there are. I mean, it seems like the more sophisticated, the more easy they are to sort of break, and not break, but just sort of like a piece here or there will come out. And if there's so many and they all look the exact same, sometimes it can get to be a little challenging. Well, now where did this go again? So it's an interesting conundrum. It's impossible for me to think about Star Wars Lego without remembering Corey's story years ago when we were talking about Star Wars Legos in a previous show, and he said that the thing he remembers the most about Star Wars Legos is that in the middle of the night he will end up stepping on a piece of Lego. Walking through the living room or something.
Oh, we've all been there.
Yep. It's called parenthood. Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, well, to close, I did want to mention that fans of the Fantasy Flight games Armada and Force of Destiny have new expansions recently released. Armada players now have access to the Hammerhead Corvette, made famous in Rogue One for smashing new gameplay, and in contrast, Star Wars Force of Destiny RPG players have a new source book titled Disciples of Harmony to further develop the Jedi consular career path. Well, for Coffee with Kenobi, I'm Tom Gross, and that's your Star Wars news.
Thank you, Tom. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about a recent article in the USA Today. This is Coffee with Kenobi.
You're listening to Coffee with Kenobi. Coffee with Kenobi.
Coffee with Kenobi was sponsored by Penguin Random House Audio. Looking to catch up on the latest Star Wars books? Try listening to them on audio. Featuring sound effects and music directly from the movies, Star Wars audiobooks are the definitive listening experience. From brand new audiobooks such as Thrawn and Empire's End Aftermath to our blockbuster movie tie-in editions, you'll have plenty to keep you entertained. Visit penguinrandomhouseaudio.com/Star Wars for sample clips and to start listening now. Coffee with Kenobi was also sponsored by the Star Wars digital card trader collecting app from Topps. If you love Star Wars and love the excitement of chasing your favorite Star Wars collectibles, the Star Wars digital card trader collecting app from Topps is for you. Download the free app from iTunes or Google Play and collect your favorite images from the classic 1977 Star Wars cards to the Clone Wars, Star Wars Rebels, The Force Awakens, Rogue One, and much more. Collect and trade with friends new and old through the Star Wars digital card trader collecting app from Topps. These are the cards you're looking for. We're in the coffee chat segment of the show, and this is something I've had that I wanted to talk about for a while, and this just seems like a more perfect time to do it because of what's going on in the world of Star Wars. So on May 25th, of course, that was the 40th anniversary And I was in a gas station getting gas and went inside to pay. And I saw the USA Today, and it had Star Wars on the front, which, of course, grabs my attention. And it says that the 40 best roles from Star Wars. USA Today ranks the best characters on the 40th anniversary. And I'm going to go ahead and read very, very quickly the intro, because it's basically just a small paragraph, and then there's a list of 40 characters. And what it says is, Star Wars is turning 40, and 4 decades have spawned 8 movies and endless characters, be they Jedi or Sith, Rebels or Imperials, twisted bounty hunters, or adorable Ewoks. In honor of this milestone anniversary of the original movie's May 25th release, we're ranking the 40 best movie characters in Star Wars history, from the original heroes of 1977 to the new figures introduced in the 7th episode, The Force Awakens, and recent spin-off Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. Some don't make the cut, sorry Jar Jar, while others have yet to prove their status in galactic lore. We'll take another look at Captain Phasma, if she proves she's more than just a cool suit of armor in The Last Jedi, in theaters December 15th. On 2D, which is the page I'm going to read, USA Today's Brian Truitt counts down the best, be they good or very, very bad. So, gentlemen, before I share with you the top 10, and we'll just kind of jump back around it as appropriate, who do you think is going to be number 1, according to Brian's list here?
Well, I confess that I am looking at the article right now, so online. So
you're killing me, Small.
I already know who number 1 is, which, if I'd stopped and thought about it, I mean, it's not like it's that big of a surprise. I probably would have guessed it. I think I was probably going to put their number 2 as my number 1, but it would have been a close, yeah.
I don't fault your logic, sir. Brian, have you cheated? Have you checked like Ian has?
Of course, I've cheated. It's only natural to have a peek, but I have to disagree with how they did it. They split that number 1 up. I think of one as one and one as the other, and they kind of lumped them together.
That's interesting.
I totally agree. And so let's just, for those of you listening who have not, this is the top 10. We're going to go in reverse order. So 10 is Finn, 9 is the Emperor, 8 Obi-Wan Kenobi, 7 Admiral Akbar, 6 Rey, 5 Yoda, 4 Luke Skywalker, 3 Princess Leia, 2 Han Solo, and 1 Darth Vader / Anakin Skywalker. And honestly, I think if they would have done it that way, I can't imagine that Anakin would be in the top 10 or 20. Just compare, at least when I look at the other names on this list. And that's not a knock against Anakin, but there are a lot of compelling characters in Star Wars that, some of these characters may be put on here because of their costumes or how much of an impact the action figures had, or just all kinds of things. So, how would you guys, you already mentioned kind of 1 and 2, but I think Han Solo, by the way, is much higher because of The Force Awakens. I think if this list would have come out maybe 3 years ago, I'm not saying he wouldn't be top 5, but I just don't know if he'd be number 2. What do you think?
That's interesting. I think that's possible. I also think it'll be interesting, if this list were put together after The Last Jedi, would Luke Luke's only at 4, so he doesn't have far to climb, right? But would he be a little bit higher also?
Oh, yeah. I never thought about that, but that makes complete sense, and I agree with you. He may even be number 1, depending on what they do with him.
Right.
Yeah, I think there's a very good case to be made for Luke for number 1. I mean, isn't this really his whole story?
Well, that's definitely. I still have argued that the first 6 films, it's really Anakin's story, even with Luke. But yeah, but I know what you're saying.
I agree with that too. I feel like, of course, I take a particular slant on this, but I've always felt like the first 6 movies are sort of the tragedy of Anakin Skywalker, right? So, but that said, I could see Luke being higher up there also.
I agree. So, okay, so in the top 10, who would you eliminate?
Well, we're probably, my guess is we're going to say the same thing. And I feel like anytime you publish a list like this, you have to in that top 10 or the top 5 or, wherever you're in your list, you have to throw in one that is very controversial, right? Because that's how you get people talking about a list like this. So I feel like their controversial one in this top 10 is Admiral Akbar at number 7, beating out Obi-Wan Kenobi, beating out Boba Fett, beating out R2, beating out Chewbacca, and so I feel like that is that's thrown in there, right, to be the thing that gets you talking about this article. So I mean, Admiral Akbar, as much as I enjoy him, right, and love him, he would not make my top 10. Otherwise, I don't have. I mean, I might, sort of get a little picky here and there with particular order of things, but otherwise, their top 10 feels solid to me.
I agree, and you are correct. Yes, I agree. I love Atbar too, but I mean, I don't think he's a top 10 character. What about you, Brian?
It's really a kind of a stretch right now because, and we look at number 10 with Finn. We're going on the movies that have already been released. I'd put Lando ahead of Finn right now, and I'm not sure Akbar would even make the top 20.
No, he wouldn't even be in my. I didn't even have thought of him, to be honest.
Well, and I feel like I might have put R2 or BB-8 even before Finn. I like Finn a lot, but So.
I agree, and I'm sorry, Qui-Gon Jinn at number 29. I mean, how is he not top 10?
And again, I'm not an Ewok hater by any means, but just after Wicket at 28, right? That to me is like it's a little bit of a slap at Qui-Gon, right? I've got to put Qui-Gon above Wicket again, even though I enjoy the Ewoks.
Agreed. Let's see, and I also think, okay, I guess I could just do. I mean, I don't know how exciting podcasting wise this will be for people who don't have the article in front of them, but I'll just do a lightning round and kind of count backwards from 40 to 11 because we already did 10 through 1. So we've got 40 Bail Organa, 39 Bosk, 38 Jack Porkins, 37 Greedo, 36 Snoke, 35 Krennic, 34 Dooku, 33 Wedge, 32 Mon Mothma, 31 Darth Maul, 39 Num, 29 Qui-Gon, 28 Wicket, 27 Maz Kanata, 26 Mace, 25 K2, 24 Padme, 23 Grand Moff Tarkin, 22 3PO, 21 Cassian Andor, 20 Chirrut, 19 BB-8, 18 Jabba, 17 Chewie, 16 Kylo Ren, 15 Lando, 14 R2, 13 Jin, 12 Boba Fett, and 11 Poe. And saying this out loud, I mean, I don't think... Again, this is just me personally, and if someone likes these characters, more power to you. That's great. There's plenty of Star Wars and plenty of opinions out there, and it's all great. I wouldn't put Porkins in the top 500, and I don't mean that. I don't mean that as a pejorative, but I feel like, for the most part, I mean, I feel like people have used him as a punchline. So I don't know. I've never really liked that angle with him. I mean, I don't think that's fair, but I don't know.
I certainly wouldn't put him over Bosk, where he is one just before Bosk, and Bosk, especially growing up with the action figures, I loved Bosk, and Hammerhead would make my list happily before Porkins, for instance. So,
and there's a lot of Rogue One love, and I love the Rogue One characters, but I don't know. I don't think. Let's see, who would do they even have Jyn Erso? Did I even mention her?
Yeah, she is at number 13, which is pretty high. I mean, I agree with you also that, I mean, if we had 2 or 3 more years sort of behind us on this list, I think Rogue One would not have quite the same showing. And again, that's me saying that, loving Rogue One. I love it, but
I think that is it possible before we wrap up this segment for you guys to give a top 10? I'd have to really think about it. And of course, we are allowed to change our minds at any point in the rest of our lives. But just Brian, what do you think, man? Can you do it?
I'm still trying to get over being in the room with Anthony Daniels when he found out he lost out to BB-8.
It's true.
I don't think his persona would have been able to handle that, or losing to Jabba too. That's a pretty tough break for C-3PO. But top 10, I'm going to give him pretty close. Darth Vader, maybe move Yoda up there quite a bit. Luke, Princess Leia, Han. I like Rey, like Queen Amidala. So I can get pretty close to a 10, but to get a perfect list, I'd have to take a little bit of work.
Yeah, and I think my 10 probably looks something. I mean, again, I'm going to be pretty close to them. Maybe Han Solo is my first. I'm probably going to put Darth and Luke and Leia all next as they have. like I said, I'm mostly happy with their list. Yoda and Rey, probably the person who's going to replace Admiral Akbar person. I say person, probably it'd be the Wookiee. Chewbacca is going to make my top 10. I'm not sure. I don't think the Emperor probably ultimately makes my top 10. Maybe he does, but I feel like R2's got to be in there somewhere. I am a big BB-8 fan. I'm also a big Jabba the Hutt fan. So, so those are also, ones that would be vying for that 10th place.
The Jabba the Hutt description is so corpulent he couldn't even move. That's how this is phrased. By the way, if you do get a chance to see the article online, it has it has the United States, and it's got a graphic for who was voted as trending, because they basically got on exclusive Google search data. Google? Did I just say Google? Google.
I think you did.
What's in my coffee here? Hello, editing. Google, the search data that identifies which characters have increased in search interest since January 2004. Kylo Ren has 26 states, and coming in second is Princess Leia. I find that interesting. My top 10, again, I don't have too many things I would tweak. I think I would flip-flop Princess Leia with Rey. I mean, I love Leia, but for some reason, Rey's amazing, and I want to see where her journey is. So I'd probably put her 3 or 4. Yoda has to be in the top 5. I'd probably put Luke at 6. I think Han or Luke, either way, I mean, you can't go wrong. And again, who knows how I'll feel about it. I've always liked Luke a lot, but I think the Harrison Ford thing is what puts it over the top for me. And then I definitely have Obi-Wan there. I'd have Qui-Gon in the top 10, and I agree with you, Ian, about R2. And I love Count Dooku. I'd probably have Count Dooku as number 10. I've always loved him. I just love his elegance. I love Christopher Lee, and I love the lightsaber hilt that Dooku has. So that's where I would probably stand.
I mean, what I really want to see is I also want to see, I want to see the name of another, let's say, 50 popular characters to really help myself remember who's being left off this list.
Right.
Because that I think would be interesting. I'm sure there'd be people I would want to put in here and take others off.
That's a good
right. Yeah.
Let's see. Greedo's in here. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Just real quick, as you're looking, either of you, is there one name that you think, oh, why are they not there? There's not really one that kind of jumps to mind.
Yeah, I mean, Hammerhead was the one for me who leaped to mind.
I always loved
it is really
the Walrus Man Kenner figure. It doesn't even it's not really much like the Pondo Bala in the Cantina scene, but I've always loved that character. I'd probably have that just for the action figure alone, probably top 40.
Yeah. I mean, that's the same for me with Hammerhead. It was Hammerhead, Bosk, and Pondo Baba. There were the three. I just love those characters. Yeah, because of the action figures.
I'd have him much higher too. I'd probably have him top 25.
Am I missing something, or did he not make the cut?
He's not there. No, he's out.
Yeah, I would have figured. Yeah, he made quite an impression on me, so I would definitely have him in the top 40 there.
I must admit, after Guardians of the Wills, that book, I like Baze quite a bit more. I enjoyed him in the film, but that book I think gave him a little bit of texture, and I don't have any problem with him being on there for sure. So let us know how you would make your top 10, or what characters are not in the top 40 of this list that you should be in there. And it will be fun, gents, to revisit this after The Last Jedi and see kind of where our little list stands. So we're going to take a break and return with your emails, tweets, and Facebook posts. This is Coffee with Kenobi.
You're listening to Coffee with Kenobi. Coffee with Kenobi.
Before we get to email, I want to thank our sponsors, Penguin Random House Audio and the Star Wars Digital Card Trader Collecting app from Topps. Please support them the way they support our podcast, and remember to listen to new and archived shows of Coffee with Kenobi wherever you listen to podcasts, including iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, our website, or wherever you enjoy listening to your favorite shows. If you listen to the show through iTunes, please leave us a review. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Pinterest, and we'd love for you to check us out there. Be sure to listen to our CWK family of shows too, including Legends Library, Rebels Reactions, Comics with Kenobi, and Lattes with Leia. From Melinda Wolf, what a fun discussion about gatekeeping, whether one should explode about one's fandom or not. Oftentimes when I'm out and about, others will see me wearing my fandom. It's not really rare for me to not wear a Star Wars shirt. And a stranger will say something like, "So you're a Star Wars fan, how can you tell?" I usually respond with a gleam in my eyes, a smile on my face. As the conversation ensues, I am well aware of where I am, that both the person I'm talking to and have schedules to keep, work to do, and after a few minutes I go on my merry way. That conversation makes my day. And this is, of course, regarding how you respond when someone brings up the whole Star Wars thing, and how do you sort of curb your enthusiasm, to borrow a catchphrase from one of my favorite shows ever, and how do you break the ice with being a Star Wars fan without overwhelming people with your passion for the project? So if you find yourself saying, "Whoa, I better," kind of, I mean, Ian, it's probably different for you because people know, because of the amazing work you've done with your William Shakespeare Star Wars series. Do you ever meet people who don't know that you've written those books and the Star Wars thing comes up? I think that'd be interesting.
Oh, absolutely. All the time that happens, actually. And I'm, part of it has to do with my wife not being a Star Wars fan in particular, although when she did see Rogue One with me in the theater. But so I'm very aware because of her that, of course, not everybody is a Star Wars fan. And I don't, I am a little bit wary of coming on too strong and being like, the Star Wars guy. And so it is interesting, when Star Wars comes up around people who have no idea that I've written Shakespeare Star Wars books, and they, sort of start talking about Star Wars in one way or the other. And, whether it's, "Oh, I'm not really into Star Wars." I mean, I think what's funniest is when I'm in a social situation and somebody says, "Oh, I'm not very into Star Wars." And there are other people there who know that I've written the books, and so they're like, "Oh, Ian's gonna be mad at you," or something like that, And it's like, no, it's okay. We can all exist here together. It's gonna be fine.
Yeah, I run into that too, where people say, "Oh, you're gonna be mad. I don't really like Star Wars." I'm like, that's fine. I mean, you don't have to like it. I don't mind. I mean, I've always said, it doesn't really matter if you like it or not, as long as you respect what the other person likes. I mean, it's just a good way to have a conversation or to transition to something else. Yeah, exactly. I would like to believe I'm not a one-dimensional person. I'd like to believe that there are other things people could talk to me about. Exactly. I completely agree. Yes, that's definitely another aspect of it too. I'm like, well, I do like sports. Would you like to talk about the Cubs? Right. There's a Shakespeare guy that I don't mind talking about either. Of course, nobody wants to talk about the Mariners, so that's a shame. Seattle, right? Yeah, maybe. Brian, what about you?
It's, when people ask you about your fandom, or they see you wearing a shirt or something like that, I always kind of, leave it to them. I say, "Yeah, love it. Do you like it? What do you like about it?" Get them to talk a little bit more, have them open up and find out what it's all about to them.
Yeah, I think that's very wise. Very wise. Huge thanks to Ian Desher and Brian Sims for coming on the show today. What new projects do either of you have coming soon that you can talk about? And where can people reach out to either of you if they want to ask you a question or just say hello? Go ahead, Brian.
Well, I don't have a very large social media presence, but I'm a little spattered on everything there is. The easiest way to find me is through my website. It's briansims.com, and there's links to social media if you want to get in touch with me. There's links to articles I've done and to some of my photography that ends up on different posts.
And I am similarly, I'm at iandesher.com. I'm at Twitter at iandesher. And let's see, what's coming up? I have William Shakespeare's The Force Doth Awaken coming out in October. And also recently was asked and recently have joined the team that is putting together Star Wars from a certain point of view, the collection that Del Rey is doing of 40 authors giving their perspectives on 40 different stories from within A New Hope.
I did not know that. I'm so excited for you, and that's great. Is this the first that's been announced?
No. It was announced. I think we put it out on the 40th anniversary on May 25th.
Oh wow! I don't know how I missed that. Are you allowed to say what your story's about?
I don't think I am, Dan. It is about Star Wars, though.
Hey, that's good. That's good enough for me. You've never steered us wrong yet. I'm so happy. Can't wait to read that.
Thanks.
And Brian is, I can say from personal experience as well as being friends with Brian on a lot of social media, Brian is an amazing photographer. And Ian, when did you say The Force Doth Awaken is coming out?
It is the first Tuesday in October. I want to say that's October 3rd, but I'm not entirely sure about that.
Very good. Well, we will.
I think that's right.
Yeah. That works. Well, we will definitely have links to all these things on the show notes. We'll be back next week with 2 new co-hosts and more Star Wars talk. This is the podcast you're looking for.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
There's no one here. Move along. Move along.